camera clear, or should I focus it a bit?
Yep, it's clear. Alhamdulillah,
Because
it's clear.
I can hang on. I can. No, now it's blurry. Now it's clear. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm just gonna double check if the stream is live. Anyone's viewing this, if anyone's viewing this on YouTube, please do let us know, inshallah, in the comment section if the sounds are okay. If the sound is okay from both our sides, inshallah. Any of the listeners, inshallah. We've got 14 listeners so far. Alhamdulillah. Let's see. Sound is okay? Yes, we are live. Okay, barakallah fikum, barakallah fikum. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear respected viewers on our podcast, on our Roots Conversations podcast, we have on our episode 11 none other than Dr. I wouldn't call him Doctor, sorry, but Brother Babar Ahmad. Sorry about that. I do not doctor really, but mashallah, you're a doctor in terms of your experience for sure. And Babar Ahmad was the longest serving prisoner to be held without trial in the UK before being extradited to the US. For 11 years, that was the case. He would break his fast in Ramadan alone in his prison cell. A tray of cold food would sit in his cell for hours, which he would eat after a long day of fasting. It's a very interesting story, and bi'idhni ta'ala, with a very short amount of time within this podcast session, it'll be interesting to see if we can fit all the questions in. But let's see if inshallah we can try our best. So Babar Ahmad, how are you doing today? You okay?
Alhamdulillah. Yes, doing well. Just had a very busy day, and I just I was coaxed. I don't like doing these things. I was coaxed by I think one of your colleagues, Hisham, and because he's like a relative, so it gets a bit awkward because then they start, then it's like the emotional stuff, and I can't really say no, and then they start. I mean, he didn't do none of that. I mean, he's he's the reason I'm talking to you. I tried hard to get out of it.
Appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the honesty. Okay, alhamdulillah. But inshallah ta'ala, nonetheless, I do definitely see benefit in this for sure, because there's a few things, obviously, a few parallels that we can obviously talk about. The fact that we've been in isolation for many of us listening to the podcast have been living in isolation because of COVID, because of lockdown, and Ramadan was in lockdown last Ramadan. This Ramadan, there is opportunity for us to attend the masjid for some people, but even then, it's a stretch. So, with the fact that you were in prison for 11 years, and I believe that was 11 Ramadans as well.
Yes.
So this is a very interesting, we can segue to that question straight away in terms of subhanAllah, like, what was your routine like? How did you do Ramadan in prison? If they don't mind me asking, inshallah.
So it was in 11 years I went to 10 different prisons, and the in 10 different prisons in 2 countries. The routine was obviously different in each of the prisons that I went to. So in the UK, there may have been, you were out of your cell all day, and then there may have been 4 or 5 hours between when they locked your cell door for the night and when they until when sunset was, when the fast opened. So what they would do is they would give us like a steel box, and in there was your hot food, and it would stay there, and you'd open it at 9 o'clock, whenever it was, by yourself in your cell, and you would open it and you would eat it, and it would quite remarkable. It would stay warm. In America, it was different. I spent 2 years in complete isolation in a supermax prison. I was on during legal visits all day, and what would happen is that the standard food that would come in the slot, the officers would bring the food in the morning or at lunchtime or in the evening, and I would just put it on the side, whatever it was. So you'd have the cold porridge from the breakfast, and you would have some other food from lunchtime and from dinner, and I would leave that on my table, and when I would eat it 4 or 5 hours later, then I would then I would just eat it 4 or 5 hours later. So Ramadan in prison, I mean, for some people it conjures up an image of Ibn Taymiyyah sitting there reciting Quran day and night, and you're reaching like uh, you know the pinnacle of spiritual excellence. The reality is quite different. So in America, I was working on my case, doing legal visits for like 12, 14 hours a day. Then in the evening, I would come back, open my fast alone, and then I would pray whatever I was able to pray. In the UK, it was when I was in prison in the UK, it was a bit different. Um, so I would get up by myself in the morning. I remember one particular prison that we were in. We were not allowed to have alarm clocks, and so what would happen is that we would either wake each other up. There were some other Muslim prisons in that prisoners in that prison. We would either wake each other up, or one of my fellow prisoners, he told me the technique to use the water trick. And what is the water trick basically? How do you get up at 3 a.m. if you are not if you don't have an alarm clock and there's no one to wake you up? And quite simply, you just drink lots of water. So if you estimate that if you drink like a big mug of water, so with me, if I drank a big mug of water, in 2 hours, I have to get up and go to the toilet. So if I need to get up in 4 hours time, then basically I'll drink half a mug of water, and I would do it like that. And so those were like ways that I would use to get up for suhoor. But other than that, the routines were different. In some Ramadans, I was able to do more and to recite more Quran when I had more time on my hands, and the others were quite difficult and quite challenging. I remember one particular Ramadan, I was sharing a cell with a Muslim brother, and we were praying together Taraweeh prayers, and next to us was a prisoner who had been confined to his cell for punishment, and his friends were on the other wing, which is about 30 meters away. So throughout the whole time that we were praying, he was having a shouting conversation with his friends, if 30 or 50 meters away in the other wing. And that in itself is, I mean, that happens in prison. That's not normal. But the type of stuff that he was talking about some pretty graphic, explicit experiences and in details, and it's embarrassing to listen to that in normal times. But when you're, in the last 10 days in Taraweeh, when you're praying, you're trying to concentrate, and you're hearing this. So we tried our best.
So that sounds very difficult. I mean, it would be equivalent to perhaps praying Taraweeh at home and the kids are screaming and crying.
Well,
But in the case of that, this is much more worse,
yeah.
I would presume.
I should hope your kids don't shout explicit be shouting explicit things in the home. I would have thought that stuff they'll keep that for their social media lives, but I should hope that they wouldn't be doing that. Yeah, it
Alhamdulillah.
was difficult. Yeah, there's some times that it was difficult.
I mean, was that quite common though? I mean, for Tarawih prayers, when you used to pray in the prison, was it common for you not to have peace and quiet? Was that?
So yeah, that was common because like in the UK, prisoners are allowed to have the stereo, so you'd have people listen to music. So I would sort of come to an agreement with my cellmates. Normally, it would cost me like a packet of biscuits or a packet of noodles or something. I would keep them happy, and I would request them that I'm going to pray from this time to this time. So I'd appreciate if they could keep the music down. And most cases they would be obliging. In the US, in the Supermax prison, it was that was much more noisier, with banging and mentally ill inmates shouting and screaming and sometimes swearing. And you have to, you just have to try and make do in the circumstances. There's no point in me just sitting down and feeling sad or crying about, oh, this, what am I going to do? You just have to make do with it. And then somehow I think with Allah would make it easy, and I would just, I would just somehow just be able to get something out of it and to enjoy it.
I mean, in terms of you mentioned a story about how you used to wake up without a clock or an alarm. I mean, I'm guessing there would have been like a clock in the main hallway as your reference point, or is it just you're looking outside, or how do you judge?
So, so yes and no. So some prisons, most prisons, you were allowed to have like a little watch, so you would know what the time was. Um, in the Supermax prison, there was a visible clock. The last prison that I went to before I actually came home, I think it was a detention center, and I spent about a month there. And the last few days before I came home, they put me into this. I think it's for security reasons because no one's meant to know what time I'm going out, which flight I'm taking to come home. Um, so they put me in the segregation unit of that detention center, and I was in the corner where I could not see the clock. So outside, there's a slit window which is 3 inches by 36 inches, and outside that window, I could just see a concrete yard. So I couldn't see the sky. I could just see concrete yard and concrete walls. And inside, I couldn't see the clock. And there's this inmate who was like a couple of cells away that was mentally unwell, and he would just shout and scream all day and all night. So those few days, I didn't really sleep. But so Ramadan, those few days, I think I did Ramadan there for about 4 days just before I came back. I had no idea what time sunrise was. I had no idea what time sunset was. My food would come, they would just put it there, and it made me think about Ibn Taymiyyah when he was in prison and he couldn't see the sun. So the only way he would know it's prayer time is when the guards they brought his food. So I would sort of estimate when it would be. So I have no idea in those 4 days. But one thing I did not do is when I came back, I did not repeat those fasts because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, if you are trying your best in the circumstances given to you, you know, I knew that. I mean, if it's sincerity or other reason that he may not have accepted, that's something else. I pray he does. But I knew that the timings for those fasts were not one reason why those fasts would have been rejected. So it was, yeah, that was very very difficult because I just had no idea. I just kept looking outside at the yard, and when I thought started to become a little bit bright, then I would just stop eating, and then same thing in the evening.
And in contrast to this, I mean, the first year after outside of prison, the first Ramadan that you witnessed and you felt outside of prison, I mean, was it a huge deal for you?
So yes and no. So the community. So Ramadan has two aspects. The first aspect is the personal, private aspect, and the second is the community aspect. A lot of people in lockdown last year they would have experienced the private, personal aspect. I know a lot of people said to me last year that this was the best Ramadan they've ever had because for some reason it was just there was nothing else and it was just that personal time between you and Allah. Um, but the community aspect is something that I never got for 11 years, going for an iftar with my family, going to the masjid, praying tarawih, going to opening the fast at a masjid there with family members and with others in my community. So that was something that was very special, and it was something which that was very nice. It was very special. The personal side, obviously, you know, the, the when you're going through a hardship, it's not just the prison thing, but in a way, when you're going through a trial or a hardship, it could be a sickness, it could be a financial problem, it could be some sort of difficulty. In a way, you're sort of like in a prison because you're alone, because only you are going through that. If you have a family member who has cancer, only you are going through that. Others might not be able to relate to it. So the, your relationship with Allah during those periods is never going to be the same as when life for you is otherwise normal.
Interesting. It reminds me of Umar radiallahu anh, because he would relish the opportunity to go through hardship, or he would recognize or acknowledge that hardship was a median for growth. It was a means for growth. And so you acknowledging that, does it makes me really think perhaps we should reevaluate how we view life itself, because when we go through life, through the hardships that life brings us, sometimes that exclusivity of that hardship pushes us to great limits, to great boundaries, getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our dhikr, in our private worship, in our du'as. And it does seem to me, at least from what you're saying, that's exactly what you felt. The transition between going from being in that specific cell and knowing that was a hardship that you had, and then going to outside of prison and then seeing, perhaps ease and feeling that sense of ease. And it does, it makes us really think. I think this lockdown period for us, to no level, it's not the same level of what you'd faced, but to what we can feel in this difficult period of time, is that we have been taking advantage of the benefits of a masjid, of the benefits of being able to go to the masjid for prayers and to be in a community, and for that to be taken away has kind of made us feel as though we have to try harder. So definitely I can see what you're trying to say there. If you don't mind me, inshallah ta'ala, I would like to move on to the next segment, where we talk about some of your dreams that you had witnessed, or some of the dreams that you had seen while you were in prison. And I can assume that was something that was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to you. I mean, if you don't mind, inshallah ta'ala, if you could relate some of that, be really beneficial.
So dreams, I found, was like a means of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, um, like consoling or comforting me during the most difficult moments. Um, I was reciting Quran, I'm doing my prayers, I'm making more dua than I've ever made in my life, but it's not enough. Um, I need a sign. I need something from Allah to tell me that, yeah, I'm still there and I'm still watching over you and I'm still listening. I mean, even Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was going through a difficult period in his life, he asked Allah for a sign. If that story is mentioned in Surah Baqarah, he said, show me how you give life to the death. And this is Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is, the father of all the prophets. Even he went through a difficult time, and then he asked Allah for some comfort, and just to bring some peace to his heart. So there were a number of dreams that I saw, and these, and just to say that people in hardships who go through other hardships, they will also have other experiences where they have seen things like this. It's not a reflection of your piety, but it's a reflection of Allah's help and support to you. So I saw a number of dreams. I saw dreams of things before they happened. I saw the tsunami before it happened. I saw people's results. Like there were some gang members in one particular prison, and there were two cousins, both of them on murder charges. I saw that one of them is going to be acquitted and go home, and that's what happened 3 weeks later. And then I saw another one of them was going to he's going to be convicted and get life in prison. I saw like world events, different things, of family or things happening within the family, births and deaths and things like that. So there's a number of, I think one of the most remarkable dreams, I think I'll share one, was in April 2005, and I was in Belmarsh prison, and I'd been moved from the prison that I was in, and I'd been moved to Belmarsh prison, which was a far harsher prison than the one that I had just come from. It wasn't the harshest one that I ever went to, but it was harsher than the one that I just come from. I was in my cell for a lot of the time. I couldn't contact my family as such. So I was going through a particularly difficult time there, and I saw a dream where I saw paradise, and I saw that I'm in a prison, and a door opens, and I enter this. It's like a whole new world, and one of the things that I remember is seeing this white light. So I saw this white light. It wasn't like the yellowish hue that you will get from the sun. It was a white light that you might get from a fluorescent light. And so everywhere was white, and it was like 4-dimensional. So it wasn't quite, it's difficult to describe it. Like you could sort of walk in the air, but there's like a path as well. So there's luscious green grass all around me. And I remember I saw these, I saw this palace, which the only way I can describe it looks like the Disney palace or the Disney towers. At the start of the Disney movies, you see this like you see this Disney you see this like castle, and it's got these tall like towers. And I saw something like that, and it was completely peaceful. And one of the things again I remember the light, because in paradise there's no sun or moon, so the light it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So so I was there, I went there, and I remember I could feel the air on my face. It was like still, there was like a certain calmness, and I was waiting there. And then after a little while, someone said that, okay, you need to go back now through that door. And I was like, I remember feeling that, what can't I stay? I don't want to go back. This place is good. So I went back, and then the dream ended. And from that time onwards until now, and it's been like 16 years since I had that dream. So whenever I read any verse in the Quran about paradise, or I read any hadith about paradise, I believe it because I've seen it. Not just seen it. I was there. I've actually been there. I've seen it, and I know it's real. So on the difficult times, or when you're tired and you can't get up for Fajr, and you like all of these things, whatever, that image it comes to my mind is that's what it's all for. That's where I want to get to. So it gives that extra a bit of motivation.
Do you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consoled you during your time in prison with sending you dreams to give you yaqeen and certainty?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there was I actually saw. I think I saw the amount. I saw that I was going to be extradited, and I saw the exact amount of time that I was going to spend in prison. I saw it like 7 years before it actually happened. I saw that in a dream. I mean, I'm not going to share that now. That's something that inshallah I'll share at a later point. But that is something that's something I've written about, and I will share inshallah.
And how would you? I mean, when you felt these dreams, how did it make you feel? Like,
you
did you?
you you suddenly, when you see a dream like that, like when you see a prophet, for example, um, you forget where you are, you forget what you are going through. It's like, it reminds me of when the Prophet ﷺ was going through hard times, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him on the Buraq, on the horse. He took him to Jerusalem, and he took him up to the heavens, and he did that at a difficult time. And it's sort of like when you see something like that, you are taken out of your little existence. It could be a little prison cell, and there's a toilet in the corner, and it's banging and shouting all around you, and you're facing extradition, and the US wants you, and all of these things. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes you out of that, and it's like He's telling you that, what you worried about, I'm still in charge, I'm still with you, and the world is bigger than the hardship that you are going through. So consolation and comfort, those words are definitely understatements. What an effect something like that has on you.
I mean, one of my close friends actually, he just came out of prison for also what would be a case where perhaps it was injustice as well, and he was telling me something that during his 4 or 5 years in prison, because I saw him before he went to prison as well, and during his time in prison, he found that his iman was very high, because at least for his case, he was with the Muslim chaplain, he was learning Arabic, he was in his cell, he was working out, memorizing Quran, he was fixated on his own goals, and he was not distracted by dunya, at least from his perspective. Uh, Perhaps it's not the same for everyone in prison, but I mean, for you particularly, it looks like to me that you benefited a lot from the spiritual lessons that you learned while in prison and connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, could you elaborate on that a bit more?
I think one of the ways to measure your relationship with Allah, or your where you are in your deen, is to ask yourself the question that, if I was to die right now, am I ready to go? So you would get that feeling if you're on Hajj, for example. If you're in the middle of Hajj, you'll be like, it wouldn't bother you if you were to die right there. it wouldn't bother you at all, for example. um, or if you're in Allah's path or something like that. Um, so that is something which in prison I would get that feeling. I don't get that feeling now. I still feel that okay, I'm not ready to go yet. There's lots that I need to do, and I wish this was better. I wish that was better. But in prison, it was a case of I was completely at peace. That I was trying my best, and I was in prison for Allah's sake. Not that I committed a crime or harmed someone. And so it's quite difficult to articulate, and I think the only way to I think, again, I keep coming back to this, that someone who's going through a hardship, whether it's marital problems, whether it's mental health problems, whether it's a disease or cancer or bereavement or sickness or a disability, someone who's going through these things, that is something that they would relate to, that when you are going through those things, then the du'as that you make, they come from your heart. They're not just coming from your lips. They're coming from somewhere deeper, because they're coming from pain. So yeah, and there were times in prison where times were there were times that were harder and there were times that were easier. But definitely the times that were harder, and that in desperation, when I made dua to Allah, He always answered. I can't think of a single time that He did not answer.
I mean, perhaps this would be a bit too hypothetical, or in fact, not possible. But you mentioned how, given the hardship that you had, it caused you to cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, and those du'as to be accepted. Um, I mean, how could we avoid that? In the sense that when we go through ease, how do we snap out of it? Because perhaps we can use the ease to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because it looks like there's two ways in that sense. When you're going through hardship, obviously you're propelled to make dua because you're in desperation. Can we not mirror that also in ease?
You can try, but you probably won't be able to. You can try. Um, I think at times of ease, the more grateful you are to Allah, then it's like the two balancing things between hope and fear, or between patience and gratitude. That when you are undergoing a hardship, you have patience. And I just want to say that patience is actually the wrong word, the wrong translation of sabr. People say sabr, or have patience, and just sit there but sabr actually means holding out until the relief comes. It doesn't mean patience. So you'll find, for example, in someone's undergoing a hardship, or there's a woman and she's getting battered by her husband, and she goes to some sheikh, and the sheikh says, "Oh, have patience." That's not what patience is. Patience is you do something about it, and you wait for Allah while you are handling your particular situation, for example. Um, so the two extremes between be grateful when things are easy for you, because when you are grateful, and give a lot of sadaqah. And that's something that one of my relatives reminded me about, is when things are good for you, keep giving lots of sadaqah. And sadaqah is not just financial. It's not just financial. It could be a good word. It could be encouraging someone. It could be helping someone. There's many types of sadaqah. Keep giving sadaqah, as that protects you. It sort of There's a hadith that the hidden sadaqah extinguishes the anger of the Lord, and it protects calamities from coming towards you. So do that when things are good for you. The dua, if I'm honest with you, I don't not I mean, others may have a different experience, but I don't think in my life I've ever made a dua in times of relative ease that has been as sincere and as desperate as during times of despair.
Barakallah feekum for that. So to recap for those listening was sadaqah, give sadaqah, and sadaqah can be multiple different things that you could do, not just giving
Hmm.
money.
Hmm.
Could be teaching, could be other forms of sadaqah. And that should also wouldn't be at the same level, perhaps in terms of desperation, in
Hmm.
making dua in times of difficulty as well. Subhanallah fiqh for that. If we could, inshallah ta'ala, if I could kindly ask you, because we're going into month of Ramadan, Ramadan
Hmm.
is just 1 month away. In fact, just little less than 1 month away. Um, what advice would you give for us going through Ramadan? How can we prepare for Ramadan? Any top three, any lessons we can take with us for that month?
So there's before I do that, there's just a couple of things, if I may share. A couple of stories that I want to sort of what we spoke about, just to help, might help bring it to life. May I do that? Are we okay for time?
Sure,
Okay.
sure, inshallah, no problem.
So we are talking about the last point. We were talking about the du'as. To give you an example, there was there's times where you want something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you make du'a for it. You keep making dua. It's something that you want at some point in the future. Like okay, you need it maybe next year, or you're looking for a job, you need it, it's going to come, or you're looking to move house, or you're looking to buy a car, you're looking to get married, whatever it is. But sometimes you have a dua and you need that answer. You need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond to it right now. Like right now, meaning now, not next week, not like on Friday, not on in 2 days time. You need him to respond right there and then. And I remember that when I was fighting my case in America, I was in this US Supermax prison. I was in isolation, and I would spend 8-9 hours of legal visits every day. Then I'd go back to my cell and I'd do some more work, and then the whole thing would start again. So the legal assistant, she came to visit me, and she said that the government or the prosecution, they have filed this letter to the court in your case, and we need to respond to it. So I just briefly looked through it, and I thought, okay, I know what I need to do, and I gave instructions to the assistant. Then when I got back to my cell, I remembered that there is one document that my lawyer has to use to respond to this, and the deadline was in the morning. So in a normal case, what would you do? You just pick up the phone, just phone your lawyer, or WhatsApp her, or email her. But I don't have a phone, I don't have internet connection. I have phone access 3 times a week for 15 minutes each, which has to be pre-booked a week in advance, and I've already used my quota for that week. So how do I get the message to my lawyer that she needs to consult that document? And when we say documents, there's probably about 12, I think something like 12 million documents in the case. So how do I tell her that is the document that she needs to consult? So what I did is, so I couldn't phone, and there's no point asking the lieutenant, because I've asked before and he hasn't. He said, I don't have the authority to give you an extra phone call. I thought, let me ask anyway. So he came around on his when his shift started, and I asked him, and he said, I'm sorry, I don't have the authority to do that, and it's 7 o'clock in the evening. There's no one higher than me that I can ask anyway. Then I thought, let me ask if there's another prisoner who I trust, who by chance may be having a legal visit this evening, and I could pass the message on to him, to pass it on to his lawyer, who would pass it on to my lawyer. So that was quite unlikely, because I was next to death row, and everyone in that prison was a convicted prisoner, so they would get a legal visit, if that, maybe once or twice a year. Most people did not get legal visits. So again, I asked that question, and the people I trusted, the prisoners, none of them had that. So then I'm stuck, and it was a very important part of the case. So at that moment, I raised my hands to Allah, and I said, you have to help me now. That, I'm stuck. I can't do anything. I can't ask a prisoner. I can't make a phone call. I can't send a letter. There is no way for me to tell my lawyer that you need to look at that document. So I said, oh Allah, I said, you have to help me now. I said, you have to tell her to look at that document. So I made that dua and I went to sleep. Next morning, the legal assistant came, and she said, here's the response to the court that your lawyer filed. And when I read that response, she wrote it better than if I had written it myself. So later that afternoon, my lawyer came herself, and I asked her, I said, what made you write this response? And she said, it was like 10:30 at night, and I was on my sofa, and I had all these documents, and I now had to respond to this, and I was just going through the laptop, looking at the files and trying to figure out how I'm going to respond to it. And for some reason, I just went into a particular folder and I started looking through that, and then I found this particular document, and that document had everything that I needed to respond to this, and that's what I did. And that was the exact time that I made that dua, that she, you know, she was sitting 100 miles away, or 50, yeah, 90 miles away, that she was led to in order to do that. That happened a few times. So that's an example where, if you make that dua where you're desperate, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He always answers.
And that was without phone, without text message, without social media. It was
Nothing.
a form of communication directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah
Yeah,
was the one who responded.
that's right. And the other thing is that there's no privacy concerns as well, because nowadays people have privacy concerns. They want to use WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram. There's no privacy concerns because my privacy was protected, and I was able to convey that message to her. He passed the message on. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala passed it on.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. I mean, do you have any more of those amazing stories?
Um,
Or is it?
so there's one more, and this was in the Ramadan of 2009. Actually happened on the 19th of Ramadan 2009, and I was in HM prison, Long Larton, which is in the UK, in Worcestershire. And I was going through a very difficult period during that Ramadan, like one of the hardest periods, I think, it was a very, very difficult period. And I was struggling a lot. And so 19th of Ramadan, so I went to, in that particular prison, I had means of an alarm clock. So I went to sleep. And when I woke up for suhoor, like I think 2:45 or something like that, the moment I woke up, there was this strong smell of perfume in my entire cell. And this was a special perfume, which I recognized this because I smelt it twice before. So the first time I smelt this perfume was during the war in Bosnia, when there was brothers that were shaheed, and this smell was coming from their blood. And it was coming from the whole area where they were. And the second time I smelt this was at the gates of the graveyard in the Medina of the Battle of Uhud, where the martyrs of the Battle of Uhud are buried. I think scholars and people of knowledge, they did mention to me that smells like that indicates the presence of angels, because when angels they come, then they bring their own scents with them, and it was something which is pretty unique. It's out of this world. It's not, it's better than Calvin Klein and Boss and whatever they think. This is on a next level. So I opened my eyes, and obviously in prison we don't have perfume. I opened my eyes, and my cell is full of this smell. So anyway, I mean, I was like, wow. So I got up, and I made wudu, and I prayed, and I had my suhoor, and I went to sleep. Then in the morning, there was a brother who was next to me, and in the morning we were just talking. I mentioned to him, I said, hey, last night I got up at suhoor and I smelled this smell. And he said to me, and that brother, he would like pray all night. He wouldn't go to sleep, you know. So he said, strange that you say that, because I was praying last night, a short time before Fajr, and while I was praying, a light shone out from the wall, like onto me for a few moments, and then it went away. And so I joked to him. I said, so what must have happened is that the angel was probably coming to visit you, but because the entrance to the unit is from my side, so he came and he passed through my cell in order to go to you. But something like that was very comforting. That only happened once in those 11 years, and it was something very comforting. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to tell me that just hold out, and everything's going to be okay, and you're not alone in this.
Barakallahu feekum. I mean, I think people that haven't experienced experiences like this before, even to a lesser degree, they may come with a little bit of skepticism in terms of, is this even possible?
Mhm.
But I mean, obviously I don't have that, because alhamdulillah, I've seen things as well. and I've it's amazing, subhanallah. But what would you say to that? For people that have,
So
who
it's
may come with the level of skepticism regarding, have you felt the presence of an angel? I mean, is that
so
yeah.
so it's quite interesting you say that, because I think a couple of years back there was a non-Muslim researcher from New York, who is a researcher in New York University in the field of like terrorism studies, jihad studies, foreign fighters. So he he's, as part of his research, he was doing research into um, like if you will, for want of a better words, like supernatural experiences or miracles experienced by um, mujahideen in the field of war. So he came to ask me about some of my personal experiences, and I relayed to him a number of these personal experiences, which he was quite fascinated by. And one thing I said to him, I said, I have never had a diagnosis of psychosis in my life. I said, I've never been like declared insane or out of my thing. So, and specifically when I had those experiences, it wasn't just me who had it; it was other people who had those experiences as well. I mean, for someone who is a skeptic about it, I mean, good luck. They can, it doesn't change the reality. Um, and it happened. I saw it. I smelt it. I experienced it. Um, and I think there's a lot of people who would, in their own, I think in their own experiences. I mean, I had a friend who, someone. I mean, I've known people that have died or passed away, people that have died away after very painful cancers, and their family members say how they would say that sometimes they would go there odd times and there would be like the smell of perfume in their hospital room, for example. So these things are part of our deen, and they're real. There's something personal. I mean, um, I'm not giving an Islamic fatwa, or passing a judgment on it. But this is an experience that happened to me, and there's no one that can refute that because it happened to me. I experienced it.
Barakallah fikum. I think there's lots of scholars have talked about this subject as well, um, and it definitely is. You will find it amongst many books. So barakallah fikum for that, Shaykhuna. Could I ask you one last question, actually? Um, we haven't missed anything out, I don't think. Have we missed anything out?
No,
I don't
just
think
just your just before I cut you off, just still those
yeah.
3 points that you asked me
Yeah,
for.
so I was going to ask you about so I was going to ask you about those 3 points. I mean, Ramadan's around the corner. Could you provide like maybe 3 points or maybe 4 points? Tips, tricks, or things to bear in mind, lessons, whatever you may have in store, inshallah.
I think the first thing I would say is try your best given your circumstances. We come from a culture of where shame is a big thing, where you are not allowed to fail, you're not allowed to make mistakes, and anything less than perfection is unacceptable. And this is not the way of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this is not what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala He accepts from us. Try your best in your circumstances. So on the one hand, you got a guy sitting in a prison cell where he's got no distractions, he's alone, he's by himself. Of course, he can make du'a with more heart and more concentration. Then you have a mother of 5 children, aged from like 0 to 12. All of them have schools to go to. They have their antics, or sleeping in the night, not getting up. And this poor woman has to like cook for them. And then she has to do all of these things. And so part of her thinks that, what sort of Ramadan am I going to get? It's just going to be, cleaning nappies and doing school runs and things like that. You have a doctor who is working, a junior doctor who's working like 40-hour shifts, constantly on the go. What type of Ramadan are they supposed to have? It's about trying your best in your circumstances and knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge you for the quality of what you do and the sincerity of what you do, and not the quantity of it. Even if, because of your circumstances, even if you're only able to read 1 page of Quran a day, that's all you're able to do, as well as the fasting and the prayers, or whatever. But you do that with sincerity, then you will be more rewarded than someone who finishes the Quran 10 times but there is something lacking in their sincerity. So try your best and don't compare yourself to others, because everyone's circumstance is different. Try your best according to your own circumstance. So that's the first thing that I would say. Um, the second thing I would say is to do the acts of worship and things that others don't do. And a lot of people forget certain things that are worship. So the standard things everyone does, everyone reads more Quran, everyone fasts, everyone gives food and dates and all that to their neighbors, or everyone does all these things. One of the things, for example, that I do, obviously I couldn't do in prison, I didn't have the means to, but one of the things that I tried to do is when Ramadan is announced, I will record an audio message to people that I know and I haven't probably communicated with them for a year. And it'll be a short 20-second audio message for that person with their name, greeting them for Ramadan and just letting them know that I'm thinking about them and I pray they have a wonderful Ramadan. Nowadays people have these forwards that they send, you got this like moon and then you've got like some stars coming around, or for Eid al-Adha, you've got this like little goats hanging around, or you've got these cats singing Eid Mubarak and all that stuff, and people just forward it. I mean, people are getting lots of these, but to get an audio note from for someone you haven't spoken to for a year, so what benefit do you get from that when that person, so they've got 500 messages of like congratulations and greetings for Ramadan, and one of them is a personalized audio note with their name on it. So that night, when they make dua for someone, guess whose name's going to be at the top of that list? So, it may take you a bit of time, but these are like acts of worship that, for example, helping people, or even not just helping people, even cheering someone up, sending people an uplifting message, or doing something like that, which is things that people don't normally do. And so try to do some of those things that people don't normally do, and that would make your Ramadan a little bit special. And the third thing that I wanted to say is Ramadan is the month of the Quran. So try to read as much Quran as you can. Try to do a little bit better. If you're not able to recite the Quran, then try to make an effort to read or listen or read it in English. If you are already reciting the Quran but you have never finished the Quran in Ramadan, try to do it. And that there's a story that I remember when I say that, is one of the prisons I went to. When I first got there, within a couple of weeks after me, there was this other prisoner who came, and he's a Muslim prisoner. He was not that practicing. He was smoking. He was listening to music. He wasn't really regular in his salah, but his heart was good. So 2 or 3 months after that, and as it happened, this prisoner was. I mean, if you've seen that movie, The Shawshank Redemption, where everyone in prison is innocent, so he actually was innocent, and I know that because all of his co-defendants, they told me that this guy is innocent, and he had nothing to do with the case. So anyway, so what happened is that when Ramadan came, I said to him, I said, look, you're here and you're in this situation, and when was the last time you read the Quran from start to finish? And he said, when I was a kid, like 25 years ago. I said, try to do it. Do you think you could do it? It will take you about half an hour, and you could do it in 10-minute segments. Do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes in the evening, and you would have got your juz done for the day, and you would finish it. And he said, okay, I'll try. And he did it. And that Ramadan, this guy, he said for the first time since he was a kid, he completed the whole Quran in Ramadan. And thereafter, he continued to do that every year that he was in prison for, I think, 10 years or something like that. So try to do, if you can, if you're able to, and if you can complete the Quran once, try to do it. If you can do it more times, try to do it more times. But I would say don't overdo it. I mean, you read these stories of Imam Shafi'i used to complete the Quran 60 times in Ramadan, and Imam such and such would recite it 30 times. I remember one prison that I was in, this detainee unit, there was a Muslim brother that was next to me. I think one Ramadan he completed the Quran 10 times. My record, I think, was 5 times, but I was completely drained, and it got to the point where I wasn't actually enjoying it, and I just felt that I've done it 5 times, but it's just the feeling isn't there, the heart isn't there. I'm like, I was getting like, it was feeling like a burden to me. So, and even that brother who did it 10 times, I think the next year, then he went down to like 3 or something like that. So I did it 5 times that year, but then after that, I went down to about, I think, 2 or 3 or something like that. But even if you can just do it once, and do something, if you've never done it before, if you have never completed the Quran start to finish in 1 month, this is your chance to do it. Just try to get it in, and you'll feel so much good. If that's the only thing you achieve this Ramadan, in addition to the fasting and everything, that you complete a Quran, you'll be laughing at the end of it. You'll be grateful, and you won't look back at your Ramadan and think that I could have done more. You would have done a lot.
Barakallah feekum for that. I'm just thinking, I think we'll have to end it on that note, inshallah ta'ala. I'd just like to, thank you, Barakallah feekum, thank you for coming for this session and to discuss what seems to touch my heart, and I can imagine our viewers and listeners the same as well, because it shows to me something deeper than just talking about actions. It's more about the state of your heart and being sincere. And nothing is more sincere except being in a position where you're illegally or unfairly detained, unjustly detained. You've got nowhere to go to. You make lots of dua. You are steadfast in ibadah. These are all kinds, and you're witnessing, miracles, your dreams. There are certain things that exude like that show a level of sincerity, and to see the fruits of that, it just reminds me, and I can imagine our viewers as well. It reminds us that perhaps we need to switch our mindset a bit, think a bit more about sincerity, more about doing things with a pure heart, and I think that's very important. And I feel like that listening to this conversation. I've never felt like this for a very long time, so I really do appreciate this. So Barakallah feekum. On behalf of Roots Conversations, I'd like to thank you once again for coming on for this conversation. And for those listening, inshallah ta'ala, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got Apple Podcast, Spotify, I think Apple Podcasts is iTunes, sorry. We're on a range of platforms, basically. Just follow all the platforms and spread the word, inshallah ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all from those who are steadfast in Ramadan. Actually, make us from those who reach to see the Ramadan as well. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Subhanakum bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.